Good evening. Thank you all for being here, for visiting with us. We appreciate you being here. Just a little bit of housekeeping. Appreciate the plug for the meeting coming up tomorrow night at Fairview. This is not humility talking, Cal. There's probably a time frame in which you want to give yourself a little time before you hear the same lesson again. 24 hours probably falls in that category. So if you don't like what you hear tonight, you're not going to like what you hear tomorrow. So I would encourage you to save the miles and the gas for Trevor. I'm sure he would appreciate it. This has been something that I've been in Luke's ear a little bit as he's grown up, 10, 12, something like that. Not so much the girls, but it's probably time to start talking about this. This is geared toward most of the younger people in the crowd, but I'm sure all of us could glean something from it. I know I can. So I'm going to show you some images tonight, and we're not going to blurt out what we think of when we see these images, but we're going to just, maybe I'll give you some ideas of what it is. Miss Carol, I remember the lesson, and I got you, all right? So when you see McDonald's, what do you think of? You think of hamburgers or French fries or apple turnovers. I think of hot mustard when I think of McDonald's. Anytime we go to McDonald's, we have to get hot mustard. Jessica loves dipping her fries and her nuggets in hot mustard. The dip ratio to nuggets is not very good. So we always have to order more. If we don't get home and there's no hot mustard, you know what happens? Nothing really. She's just sad. So nobody wants to eat sad. So Dairy Queen. When you think of Dairy Queen, what do you think of? Some people may think of chicken strip baskets. People may think of Blizzard cakes. Everybody thinks of Blizzards, right? And a little 1-2 they give you when they give you the Blizzard, they just pass it out to you. I'm not sure what that's about, but I saw some guy take the money and go bam, bam, like that, just as a kind of a mocking thing. So it's kind of funny. What you think of those things when you think of Dairy Queen? Nike and Under Armour. There's something for everybody there, right? There's everyday gear. There's baseball gear. There's basketball gear, track, softball. There's all kinds of things you can get with Under Armour and Nike. If you're a little less urban, a little more rural, Carhartt and Mossy Oak might be right up your alley. I love Carhartt stuff. It's just good stuff. Beanies, bibs, coveralls, jackets, hoodies, whatever you think. Mossy Oak, people often associate that with hunting gear. You may see some firearms manufacturers collaborate with Mossy Oak. I've seen some protein powders with Mossy Oak on them, which is kind of interesting. Maybe your only frame of reference with Mossy Oak is from a kid out of North Carolina who's a good old boy, and he don't have any choice. He picks his guitar in the evening, and he wears his Mossy Oak. Okay, but where does he wear his Mossy Oak? Out of deer season. That fell flat. Sorry about that. He wears his Mossy Oak out of deer season. Those people who are musically inclined may recognize some of these. I do not. A lot of people who bend the guitar strings or shred or play piano or violin or what have you, may recognize these musical manufacturers. You know what that means. Guitars, drums, what have you. Sometimes we see images and they don't really give us a good feeling. And full disclosure here, I've been sitting on this for a little while, so this is a long time before November and January, but I looked up the most hated logo in the world last year sometime, and it's the Trump Organization. Now you can do with that whatever you want. We'll just leave it there. The donkey and the elephant, right? The Democrat and the Republican parties. I'm not political. I'm not going to make this political. What I know of these two is the donkeys don't like the elephants, and the elephants don't like the donkeys. And when mom and dad are constantly at each other, and despite each other, they don't get along, the kids always benefit, right? So that's all I'm going to say about that. The NCAA. No one likes the NCAA, except for the guy the movie Safety is about. That's probably the only person that you will hear that likes the NCAA. These are all brands. Every time you look at these brands, you think of, from a corporate standpoint, you think of who they are, what they're known for, products and services they may provide. what they stand for, maybe the values that they embrace, maybe their mission statement. The marketing departments of all these places spend a lot of time making sure that when you see these things, you think this, that, or the other. From a personal standpoint, how much time do you spend thinking about your personal brand? How much time do you think about what your brand says about who you are? What your brand says about what you stand for? The values you embrace, what you're known for. Is it positive or is it negative? We're going to look at some groups and an individual and see what some brands that come to mind when I think of these folks, and it's even written about some of them. What do you think of when you hear Joshua's name? I would say a leader. You know, he was to succeed Moses in Deuteronomy 31. We talk about that. He led Israel, I think, to like 13 victories. His faith in God. We know about his faith in God. Remember in Numbers 14 where he and Caleb were sent out. Not he and Caleb. Their 12 spies were sent out. 10 of them brought back a bad report. The 2 didn't, which were Joshua and Caleb. And he said, "The Lord is with us. Do not fear." Almost got him stoned, but God stepped in. But his faith and his boldness to speak against the crowd is something that we would consider a brand for Joshua. His courage. When God commissioned Joshua to lead the people into Canaan, he said, "Be strong and courageous." And he rallied the people. He said, "Prepare your provisions. We're to go in 3 days. We're going to take over this land." His commitment. Joshua 24, there's a renewal of the covenant. And Joshua kind of goes through from Terah, Abraham's father, all the way to where they are now. They're living in houses they didn't build. They're drinking from wells they didn't dig, eating from vineyards they didn't plant. And he said, if he is faithful to you in these things, so serve him faithfully. And a verse we're all really familiar with. If it's your desire to serve the idols, make that choice. But for me and my house, we're going to serve the Lord. And lastly, his influence. He had a large influence on the people. In Judges 2:7, we talked about, it reads that the Israelites served the Lord throughout the lifetime of Joshua and the leaders who outlived him. And all those had seen the great things that God had done for Israel. So Joshua had a lot of brands that we think of when we talk about him. The brethren in Thessalonica. In 1 Thessalonians 1:7, it said that you became an example to all the believers in Macedonia and Achaia. You ever thought about how large that area is? I haven't, but I looked it up, and I hope this number's right. It's like 61,000 plus square miles. And that doesn't help me at all. I don't know I can't visualize 61,000 miles. So I did a little research on like states and how big states are. According to the interweb nets, Georgia is around 57,000, almost 58,000 square miles. So that's a large area. It's like someone in Valdosta knowing about the faith about the person in North Georgia. And let's say I'm wrong, Kyle. Maybe say I'm wrong about this area. Macon being your center point. What if it's half of this? From Macon all the way to Valdosta, or Macon all the way to this is the Chattahoochee, the Chattahoochee forest up here. But it's a large area for Paul to point to or mention and say, you want to know how to imitate Christ? You want to know a big example of a believer? These guys were getting it done. And even then, Paul talks about in verse 8, not just this area, but it went out everywhere. Their faith went out everywhere. They're well known for their love for each other. 1 Thessalonians 4:9-10, Paul talks about there was no need to write about this topic. It gives a characteristic that they had. No one taught them this. They were taught by God. Not only throughout this region, not just locally. What's interesting is they were teachable. To me, I think they were teachable. In verse 10, it says, even so, you've been doing this, been doing a great job at this, but find ways to do it even more. The Bereans. We talked about the Bereans in the gospel meeting. Michael talked about the Bereans a little bit. So we talked about the Thessalonians. We know they were pretty good people, but the Jews in Berea were more noble than that group was. The NLT says open-minded. In Isaiah, you read, but he who is noble plans noble things, and on noble things he stands. And that Hebrew word noble willing or generous or noble in mind and character. They were eager to learn, and they examined daily the scriptures to make sure that what they were talking about, what they were being taught, was true. Certainly wonderful brands to aspire to be. But it didn't stop there for me. Let's turn to Acts 17 if you haven't already. Acts 17, 10 through 15. In verse 13, but when the Jews from Thessalonica heard the word of the God that was proclaimed by Paul and Berea also, they came there to agitate and stir up the crowds. Then the brothers immediately sent Paul off on his way to the sea, but Silas and Timothy remained there. Those who conducted Paul brought him as far as Athens, and after receiving a command from Silas and Timothy to come to him as soon as possible. So Paul's getting some heat in verse 13 of this chapter, and they sent him to the coast. They sent Paul to the coast. Verse 15 is very impressive for me. Those who conducted him. The NLT says those who escorted him. So the Berea to the coast is like 20 miles. I don't know if y'all can see this up here. And then from Berea along the coast all the way down to Athens. It's quite a haul. Like 250 miles if this is right. That's an impressive thing for me. Almost a sacrificial thing that these guys, they were so concerned about Paul that they made sure that he got there safely. And there's so many questions that come to my mind when I think of this. How many people were there? Who all was escorting Paul? Whose boat or boats did they use? Did they have families? Did they have jobs? Did they just drop everything and do this for Paul? Who brought the snacks? Izzy, right? Who brought the snacks as we were eating, right? Got to have snacks when you're on a boat trip. Hope it's more than just beef jerky and Oreos. How would they know how to do this? How would they know this is what followers of God do? They didn't have Philippians back then. In perfect world, I would like to think they were just studied Leviticus 19:9, what we talked about in the back this morning about loving your neighbor as yourself. I would want someone to escort me if I was getting some heat from people. So those are some brands of some people that we read about in the Bible. Joshua, leader, faithful, courage, commitment, influential. Thessalonians, examples, faithful, love for each other, teachable. The Bereans, noble, eager to learn, students of the word, sacrificial. So I ask these questions to all of us. Mostly the younger guys. What's your brand? What would you want others to say or think about you when they hear your name or see you? We were watching a reality show as a family, and we were watching the final episode of the show. And in this episode, people were able to send questions in about particular things that happened during the show. And someone had sent this in, and they asked this question: did this happen to this person on the show in this particular instance? Because if it did, this would be 100% on brand for them if that really happened. Imagine two Israelites after Joshua had passed away, and the people who had followed Joshua had gotten up in years, and they were asking about Joshua and the events that took place and all the things that Joshua was. And ask them if they could validate all these things. And the answer is, well, that was just 100% on brand for Joshua. The faith in those in Thessalonica, it was evident by their action. Their love clearly was palpable for each other. They didn't have to ask anyone if they loved each other. They saw it in words. They saw it in actions. Wouldn't it be awesome to be part of a group of believers that when a visitor comes, they could see how much we care about each other? And if they're out in the community, they're discussing the love a local body has for each other, and another person of the community says, yeah, I've been there. I've seen it firsthand. It's 100% on brand for those folks. So what would yours be? What would your 100% on brand characteristic be? Some of you guys are getting ready to start college. And that's so weird. Some of you are 16, or soon will be. You're going to start driving. You're thinking about careers, thinking about entering the workforce. That's so weird. It's so weird. Some of you, if you don't already, have may have social media accounts, or you eventually will have some. Again, it's weird to think you guys are old enough to do all these things. What do you want your brand to be in those instances? In all those spaces, what do you want your brand to be? What would you like your 100% on brand, Christ-like characteristic be in those spaces? And you may say to yourself, well, I'm not Joshua. I'm not a leader. I'm not courageous. I'm not as studious as the Bereans. Hopefully, we all exhibit some type of love to each other. I would encourage you to not focus on what you're not. Don't focus on what you aren't. Focus on what you want to be. We did a word swap this morning in class, and I encourage you to maybe do it sometime when you have time. I want you to take 1 Corinthians 13, 4 through 7, whenever you have a moment by yourself. And go through 4 through 7 and replace your name where the word love is. And read that honestly and sincerely and ask yourself, are these things that are part of who I am? Are these things a part of my brand? Are these the attributes that come to mind when people think of me or hear my name? Are these 100% on brand for me? Am I quick to hear? James 1:19. Know this, my beloved brothers, let every person be quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to anger, for anger of a man does not produce the righteousness of God. And I know the context of this talks about being angry, but there's so much value into being an ear for somebody. You guys are going to encounter things as you get older where you're going to need someone to listen, need someone to talk to. Who comes to mind for all of you young people right now? If you had an issue, I'm going to go talk to this person. Hopefully you have someone in these four walls, a friend that you can talk to. If you don't, maybe that's something that could be part of your brand. Because listening to each other and having each other to hear things is going to be valued for you as you get older. Here's also another good place to start. Every one of these examples that we talked about tonight, and a lot of people who love God in the Bible, had a lot of things in common. This is one of them. If you don't know where to begin to mold and shape your brand, be a servant. Find ways to serve. Serve God and others in some capacity. It's a great place to start. There are countless ways to serve, and you can tailor it from there. I'll kind of sum up with this. In Hebrews chapter 11, this is a chapter full of flawed people. We'll have character studies about these folks a lot of times, and we'll pick out little things about them, about the character flaws that they have. A lot of times we see ourselves in these folks. Here's what the Hebrew writer says about them in the first part of verse 39, chapter 11. All these people earned a good reputation because of their faith. They were known for their faith. Their brand was in their faith in God, according to the Hebrew writer. In some of those cases, it required a tremendous amount of faith. I want you to build a large vessel because there's going to be a flood of waters coming later in a few years. I want you to leave a place, everything you know, and go to a place I'm going to show you. I want you to leave Pulaski County, Russell County, Casey County, Wayne County, and I want you to go to Monowee, Nebraska. Population as of 2024, Elsie Eiler. She's the only one there. She probably loved the company. It was faith that caused Moses to consider the reproach of Christ greater value than the riches he could have gained by being the son of Pharaoh's daughter. Can you comprehend the type of faith it would take, that would require of you to go into battle with this battle plan I'm about to explain to you? We want to march around the city one time a day in silence for 6 days in this particular order. On the seventh day, march around the city 7 times while priests blow horns. When you hear the priests give one long blast of the horns, I want everyone to shout as loud as they can. Then the walls of the city are going to collapse, and the city will be yours. What kind of battle plan would that be in today's time? Would everyone have faith to go into battle with that kind of plan? Those situations required a tremendous amount of trust a tremendous amount of faith in God. And I'm sure there were times where it was not easy. Imagine assembling the ark, 100 plus years to assemble an ark. In year 57, you're sitting here assembling an ark and wondering, is this worth it? We're marching around Jericho on day 4 as you made the lap. I don't know how big Jericho was. I've read different accounts on it. I don't know how long it took it to go around it, but imagine doing this on day 4. Why am I doing this? Faith can be difficult when you don't see the results immediately. I think we'd all probably agree with that. But when the rain started to fall and the wall started to crumble, I wonder what that felt like. The thing is, faith is not for the things that are here. Having faith be a part of who we are, our brand, is not for things that are here. It's for something better that God has in mind for us. And that's not easy. I can tell you this. There are a lot of people in this room who had things happen to them. I don't know why I'm crying about this. Who've had things happen to them who had no choice. The sheer fact of going on, continuing, requires a tremendous amount of faith. They made a choice to make faith a part of who they are. They made it part of their brand. If you're struggling to make faith a part of who you are, please talk to someone. Anyone. Anyone in this room would love to speak to you. It doesn't have to be me. Maybe I can't relate. But there is someone. I'm confident there's someone in this room who has gone through what you're going through, or is currently going through what you're going through. Find them and talk to them. And we'll end where we begin. And I appreciate your time. Choose a good reputation over great riches. Choose being held in high esteem, for it is far better than silver and gold. So I ask you this question. Ask all of us this question. What is your brand? I appreciate your time. Appreciate your attention. We extend the invitation, Jesus, tonight. If there's something that we can do to pray for you, or you would like to respond to the gospel call, we invite you to come forward. As together we stand and sing.